Graham asked first, Samantha. We will let Graham have the honor.
And does it mean a lot to you?
Yeah, how much exactly? What's it worth?
Yeah.
Dang it. And then I'm going to give this one really good. And it's not really good.
So we will do the stars in the order of the study guide.
I'm so sorry you're sick. So bad. No problem.
Stars in the order of the study guide. Remember, these are not necessarily what's on the exam tomorrow. These are just the topics that tend to confuse people more or show up on the AP test or come up in the next year. Criteria pollutants get 1 star. Primary and secondary get 1 star. Global dimming gets 1 star. Those 2 types of smog, they each get 2 stars. And remember, that's mandatory chemistry. By mandatory chemistry, I mean the ones that you're responsible to know the chemical reactions. Scrubbing gets 2 stars. And I'm sorry to do it at the last minute, but scrubbing is also known as flue gas desulfurization. Number 3 was wrong. If you wrote down the answer to number 3 from the movie, you probably have the wrong number. You should look at study goal number 21 instead. Because number 3 asks you to rank the greenhouse gases, and they're actually wrong in the movie, but correct in number 21. Number 4 gets 1 star. 6 gets 1 star. 7 gets 1 star. 8 had another error. If you read in number 8, if you saw in the movie number 8, there was that first question about clouds and the height and climate. There was actually an error in the movie. High clouds don't increase heating. Low clouds increase heating. 11 gets 1 star. For number 12, I have to see if you all took the notes. In lecture on number 12, I said there are 6 observations we should make about the atmosphere. Those 6 observations were the layers like a jawbreaker, heat source being the Earth, the density of the atmosphere being greatest at the bottom, ozone layer, ultraviolet differences, and water everywhere. Those 6 rules need a star because they will help you understand almost every single day of the unit. 13 gets 2 stars. 14 gets 1 star, 17 gets 2. 19 gets 1 star. 20 gets 2 stars. 21 gets 3 stars. 22 gets 1 star. 23 gets 1 star. 24 is 2 stars. 27 gets 2, 28 gets 3.
Sound like a chew.
I literally get hiccups when I drink. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
29 gets 1 star, and that's mandatory chemistry. 30 gets 2 stars, and that's also mandatory chemistry. 31, all of those ways to avoid air pollution, that's 3 stars. 35 gets 1, 37 gets 1. 39 gets 2. 41 gets 2, 42 gets 3 stars. Mandatory chemistry. You know, 46 doesn't really get a star. Just look at it really quick. You should just never confuse these topics. I understand they have similar ingredients. The atmosphere seems like one place from the ground. But you got to realize ozone issues and greenhouse issues, they're just like separate things in separate parts at separate times. Just don't discuss them together. 47 gets 1 star and is today's warm-up. Anybody know the answer to today's warm-up? Actually, not really.
It raises the pH in the soil, so.
Actually, no, it doesn't. Actually, it does, but anybody know something else? Yeah, right. It's the heavy metals question. Remember that acid dissolves rocks. And so when those rocks contain heavy metals, acid rain puts more heavy metals into soil and water.
So it doesn't have an effect on the pH?
It also lowers soil pH. 48 is just helpful, not a big deal. 49 and 50 are just political issues. If you're not into politics, this is not necessarily interesting. 49 and 50 are politician bashing, and usually I'm happy to bash both parties. All things considered, George Bush probably had the worst environmental record of any president, despite having been, in my opinion, a pretty intelligent guy, not the worst president. I think environmentally, he's just like the biggest piñata. 51 and 52, these are just sort of for science nerds. If you're really into science stuff, I think you'll find both of those interesting. 53 and 54 are lesser issues within the unit. I don't think they get a star. 55 gets 2 stars for sure. Because Santa Barbara, if you didn't know it, was one of the places that launched ocean acidification research. Really quite earth-shattering. 56 gets 2 stars. It's about how climate and disease are connected. 58 is just an interesting topic. If you're not into ecology, it doesn't really matter, but what's a growler bear or a pizzly bear?
Crossbred.
Grizzly polar bear.
Now, sometimes hybrids do better. It's like, hey, look, if you can get a little of both of these, you can do both of their jobs. It's called hybrid advantage. But sometimes, When you become a hybrid, you lose useful traits to do one job and useful traits to do the other, so you tend to be lower fitness. That seems to be the case here. Where they interbreed, growlers and pisleys have what's called hybrid disadvantage, and this is a very famous example. Also, a funny detail that is kind of just trivia, I suppose, they have a shorter temper. So the hybrid bears have an especially negative track record in their interactions with humans. They seem to be more likely to fight back instead of running, and they seem to be more likely to keep fighting than to give up. So they've been responsible for a lot of death and injury where they are found. Just an interesting little detail for you.
Yeah.
59 gets 2 stars. 60 gets 1. 61 and 62 each get 2 stars. I want to remind you, as always, the exam will have things that did not get starred, and some of these stars will not be on the exam. This is just where you might want to focus extra. You should still study the whole study guide for tomorrow's test. Now, I'd love to answer questions relevant to the content first. If there aren't any, then we can move on to chaos. But we've got 12 minutes. We could use them to help teach the class. Tomorrow's exam is the hardest of the year, by the way, in terms of science. Yeah.
Could you list out the 6 criteria?
Ozone, carbon monoxide, SOx, NOx, lead, particulate matter.
And the significant relevance of each one,
Oh, that was like a whole,
or the general concept about them.
I mean, ozone is toxic. It's a secondary pollutant. It's made of smog.
So that's a card.
Probably, yeah. NOx are involved in the formation of oxidants like ozone. They also make acid rain. SOx are primarily scary because of sulfuric acid. It's a really powerful acid. That's what sulfurous smog is so dangerous for. Particulate matter is the synergistic amplifier of other air pollution. It delivers air pollution through your lungs and increases contact time. Lead was really bad. It's a heavy metal, so it causes metal poisoning. But lead has mostly been erased by making it, by banning it as a fuel additive. Don't forget it. There's something else called VOCs, which are separately more or less regulated. It's not one of the 6, but there are regulations about individual VOCs. And because they're highly reactive, they are a part of many secondary chemical reactions. Yeah.
Brown smog versus gray smog chemistry.
Brown is car stuff. It's the oxidants from NOx and VOCs. Gray is sulfurous smog from coal. It's the sulfuric acid.
And gray is more deadly than brown.
Actually, I think brown is more deadly. It's just that sulfurous has been found at much higher concentrations. So the London thing killed a lot more people, not because it's inherently more toxic, but because those levels were highly elevated.
So say if it was like brown at the same concentration, it would be worse.
I reckon so, yeah.
Brown is non.
Right.
What were forces that kind of go, that was question number 22?
These are other things that interact in climate.
Like chemicals?
Yeah, so like aerosols in the air, for example, they can heat up and so they elevate global warming. And aerosols can make condensation nuclei to form clouds, and those clouds hold heat too. So they are other variables in climate systems. Kupia?
For number 19, in Carson said that the southern hemisphere has a lot more photosynthesis because the ocean has a lot more photosynthesis. But in the book, it says that the day in winter to summer CO2 levels is a lot more in the northern hemisphere because there's more land mass.
Well, I'm pretty sure that that's a typo if that's what the book said. There's definitely more land mass, but the ocean does almost all of the planet's CO2 absorption.
So we should cut the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you extra credit if you prove me wrong, but I'm very confident saying that southern summer uses more CO2, northern summer leaves a lot into the atmosphere because there's more land mass. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be really surprised if that was wrong. You can Google that right now. Yeah.
For the very last question, I didn't get who the losers will be if we successfully cool the planet.
Well, there's a lot of ways in which global dimming might address climate change, but it might also impact the poor. You know, it's like one of those dogma issues for people that are really into social justice, that pretty much any major global trend tends to hurt the poor more. You know, geopolitically, the poor is kind of along for the ride. People could argue that point.
Okay, and
So
then
that may be a biased perspective. That's what the article says.
and then also it says the possibility or what's the challenge of dealing with snow?
No?
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'll come back.
Okay. Oh, found it. How does this possibility compare to international carbon legislation? The key issue.
What?
It's talking about, it's 59 about geoengineering.
Yeah.
After asking who's likely to lose, it says, how does this possibility compare to international carbon legislation?
Oh, well, it seems like international carbon legislation is just more likely because it's at least being discussed at the political level. Like, geoengineering is a scientific question.
Okay.
Then after you settle the science, it would become a political question to see if somebody's going to pay for that science and who's going to actually do the engineering. Until then, carbon legislation just seems like an easier target. It might be simpler to just pass laws which we know are not a scientific question mark. They're just a political challenge only.
Okay.
Who else? Yeah?
What do you feel is the most, do you think that is the most important concept of this strategy? Oh, well, yeah, I just did it.
Yeah, schoolwork, learning, study guide. Yeah.
I did the research in the form you made me.
Oh, yeah?
It's like, I looked at 2 different websites. They didn't actually have the journal online, at least not on my phone. So they
Yeah, you gotta pay for the article.
kind of conflicted, but not really. Like, one of them was a lot more specific than the other, like quoting the journal. 3 CFCs and 1 HCFC.
They're not sure where they're coming from. Feedstock chemicals, insecticide production, and solvents between electrical components. Right, 1 point miscellaneous extra credit unit 9 with your name on it. Separate sheet of paper, 1 point. Extra credit unit 9. What else? Yes, Dane?
What are the elements in oxygen?
Hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, bromine, iodine, nitrogen, chlorine.
I do think.
The big ones that destroy ozone are bromine and chlorine, right? What else? I would assume so, but I don't want to say that. I think so, and I don't know enough chemistry. I don't know. Yeah.
Is it same thing with the chlorine and that just put bromine in? Is that-
Yeah, so the reactions would be the exact same. You know, you have a different compound that splits off bromine, and from then on it is BRO, bro. I bet it was just a bro. Anybody else? Last chance. Okay, we've got 1 minute to talk about life. What